आज हमारे साथ है करण बजाज, who is, I fail to even know how to describe him. So we will get to know him in the multiple personalities जो वो है. Thank you so much, Karan, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Karan, I want to start with my first question, जो मेरे guests मैं अक्सर पूछता हूँ कि पिछले 10 सालों में what do you think has been the biggest change that has come in you as a person?
So exactly 10 years ago, 2012 May, I was working with Kraft in the US in a pretty typical corporate job. And us time par I'd so a small thing like a large thing had happened. My mother had died from cancer just around that time. She was very young. She was in her early 50s. And at that point, मैंने decide करा था कि मैं 1 साल off लेकर I'll go very deep into yoga and meditation. At that point, it was a much more spiritual kind of quest because, my mother, I'd seen her kind of body disintegrate in front of my eyes. So at that time, it was more about why do these things happen? What is the meaning of life? What is, if the end is like that, then what is the journey about? So it was a much more spiritual kind of question. So फिर वो 1 साल I traveled from Europe to India by road, and then I became a yoga teacher at the Sivananda Ashram in Madurai over about 6 weeks. And then lived in the ashram for a while, then went up to the Himalayas in Uttarkashi and learned meditation deeply, and spent another few months in both yoga and meditation, going very deep. Then took another 3 months to write a book around these experiences in Portugal in a small artist retreat. So that happened exactly 10 years ago. So it's surprising when you ask that question. I came back from that, and then I would say like I would say truly the most transformative thing that happened is that all of the kind of spiritual questions that I had at that point, I got some kind of an answer to that, and a little bit of a deeper journey started in terms of meditation became very deep part of my life, and then also I just started to understand how temporary and how temporary most things are. So a lot of attachment that I had at that point of time to a certain career path or a certain financial status kind of left me, and I started to take very big chances, right? So I would say a lot of like mental stability from the yoga and meditation practice the entire year of going very deep in it. And I would say the risk-taking ability, because just to give you a sense, in the yoga ashram, they're like in Sivananda, there are 60 people living in a kind of a dorm room, and there's one bathroom that everybody is sharing kind of a thing. So when you live like that for a few months of time, then you start to realize that you need very little to survive. So I think that obviously everybody knows that, but वो एक personal realization बहुत deep हो गया था उस time के बाद. So उसके बाद I just kept taking risks based on whatever I thought was important. So I decided to become a full-time writer after coming back to New York, left my job to do that, then left Discovery to start a tech company. So I think the liberation that I experienced on that I need very little to live on and I can keep taking chances happened as a result of that journey. And then personally, meditation has been a very big component of my life for the last 10 years. So lots has changed in the last 10 years.
Wow. That is a lot to start with itself. Oh, wonderful. Congratulations on that journey. And it's so crazy कि अक्सर जिंदगी में you're hit hard to only realize how you have to start looking at life all over again.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'm in some way, I don't even know whether it's the right thing to say or not, but that event of your mom passing away got you to perhaps get your own life back in some way. Did you have a family at that point? Were you married at that point?
No, I wasn't married. I was almost 33, 34 years old. And then there was a lot of obviously family pressure at that point of time. उससे पहले भी मैंने 3-4 साल पहले I'd taken some time to backpack and write my first novel, Keep Off the Grass. So I wasn't married at that point of time. But my girlfriend was there and we went together for a part of the journey. And eventually we got married. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'm curious to know, you've clearly evolved and gone up the hierarchy of spiritual evolution. Is there something, Karan, जो आपको पता है, which you feel or you wish most people knew about life?
I think to say that I've moved up the hierarchy is a very big, as you know, I think I've looked at your journey, very similar journeys, and journeys that are always, it always feels like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, because the theory of what you learn about controlling your desires and instincts versus the actuality of living that in daily life is always a contrast, or is always a journey of like getting better and better, but never quite feeling that you're arriving anywhere. So I don't quite feel that way. But having said that, I think one big thing which is not fully linked to the spiritual part, but I realize now, I think the first act of creation that somebody does is the transformation point in their life. And that could be as in your case, like you started creating content on social media, and that really was the first act of creation that really started to transform you. And in my case, it was writing the first novel in 2008. I wrote it अपने काम के बाद. But what I started to learn was कि जब पहला एक creative project करते हो, तो life का whatever you've learned, you put all of yourself into that creative project. And then you realize कि whenever you try to do a second creative project, you realize that you have nothing more to give, and you fill your well, if you will, with lots of more experiences. And then you do the second project. And I saw कि एक cycle बन गया था life में कि पहला novel लिखने के बाद I would take all of the experiences, put it into a creative project, then realize that I was kind of empty again and fill a life with a lot of diverse experiences again. Then I kept doing that again and again. So that I think is a very powerful realization, which I wish everybody knew. कि अपना पहला creative project, I did mine first at age 28. I wish at age 19 I decided to do कि एक novel लिखता या फिर एक YouTube channel बनाता या some powerful creative project, because it completely takes all of what you have to give. And then you become empty again to fill it up again. And I realized that वो एक pattern बन गया है, right? उसके बाद I left Discovery also कि एक startup with that whole similar creative thrust कि I have to kind of build something again. So each time I keep giving everything I have to that particular creative project, and then feel the need to fill my life with experiences once again. So I think that was a very powerful realization, which I think happened quite late for me. I was doing it unconsciously, but I think I realized it only a few years ago that this was the pattern I was forming.
Yeah. And it's very interesting you say this. So जब आपका एक पहला creative project accomplish होता है, and in your admission, एक तरीके से your vessel gets empty and you have to fill it back with experiences, with learnings, with reflection. Does that mean कि आपको कहीं ना कहीं पता है कि दूसरा creative project क्या होने वाला है, so that you choose these experiences and these learnings? Or is it that the experiences and learnings define what the second creative project will be?
No, it's a very good question. What I've seen is that there's almost like a period of like very like once you've completed this act, right? So for example, in WhiteHat Jr.'s case, after finishing exiting WhiteHat Jr., I really didn't know what the next chapter would look like. Actually, there was a part of me which was feeling that obviously I won't do a tech startup again. I would go into some public sector work, a government politics kind of work. So then for the year that I took off after recently, I was in Costa Rica. I was reading very widely about public administration, government, etc. And so I had a vague sense that, look, I want to be in much more like public structure stuff, if you will. But at the end of that period, and then coming back and doing a little bit of work with the government, I somehow started to draw more parallels between how tech can influence large-scale public infrastructure stuff, and that gave me the idea for a startup that I'm just kind of in the planning stage of building next. But at that point, एक साल पहले मुझे कभी भी दिमाग में नहीं था कि I'll do another startup after that whole up and down experience. But I think what happens is that you enter this fallow period where you are learning a lot of things, and then what I've seen with people, very similar to you who have multiple different experiences, dots start to connect in very different spaces, right? Although you don't know how the dots will connect, but that's what I've noticed typically is happening.
That is awesome. That's such a wonderful realization. That is actually so true. And over time, this is an interesting one. Jahan, you went on this spiritual journey. You wanted to ask some really tough questions. Maybe you got the answers of few. Maybe you were still hungry.
Yeah.
And then you went into this, let's call it a wild game of startups, which is raising money, growing at breakneck speed, perhaps at times even unprofitably, maybe not even sustainably, then having this brilliant exit, which a lot of people would give their entire lifetime to get. So you suddenly now flush with attention, money, expectations, pressure. Do you feel you were better equipped to handle everything because you'd gone through that journey, or was it almost like क्योंकि ये जिंदगी में कभी हुआ ही नहीं था, तो it's almost like a fresh start all over again and you have to learn and make those mistakes?
Very good question. Some parts I would say, a few parts in the startup journey were made easier by a lot of prior experimentation. So, for example, when you're writing a novel, and in 2015, after coming back from the sabbatical and spending 2-3 years working again, I decided to become a full-time writer. I'd spent about 15 years in the corporate world, Procter & Gamble, Boston Consulting Group. I was doing reasonably well or doing quite well in the corporate life. But I'd always felt that I didn't go deep enough as a creative professional, right? I had written 2 novels, which had done reasonably well in India, but I thought, world class, I haven't done a creative exercise and I want to write a novel that really it gets published outside India, the world, it's got like enough depth that it can stand its ground in the world. So in 2016, I had left my job and I thought I'll become a full-time writer. Now, that was the first time I was doing full-time writing, and the act of taking a blank page and turning it into a 300-page novel has very similar leaps of faith, surprisingly. First, you have to believe कि लोग तुम एक साल जो कर रहे हो without anybody knowing, that will lead into something meaningful. Then around you, and then you face a lot of rejections, especially when I was publishing internationally. My third novel, The Seeker, was rejected 61 times by agents.
Wow.
So over 18 months, I was rejected almost every month, 2 or 3 times, and I would keep revising. And in the end, you are kind of I was published, right? And overall, I think that kind of shaped me a lot, in the sense when I came to the startup, I didn't expect obviously things moved a little bit faster, thankfully for me, but I didn't have those similar, like I would say, like fears, right? I knew pehle din aoge, there'll be nothing. And I remember I was Discovery India's head just before that, Discovery India's CEO. And I just gotten Prime Minister Modi on Bear Grylls versus Man versus Wild with Bear Grylls. And so I was speaking to and because you're behind a job, there was nothing great I was doing, but you're behind a big title, right? So you're speaking to people in the industry, and politics, and then suddenly in your own startup, तुम कॉल कर रहे हो 60-70 लोग को, भाई कोडिंग क्लास खरीद लो, कोडिंग क्लास क्या होता है, लोग फोन काटी जा रहे हैं, 3-4 हजार रुपए के लिए you are like following up 7-8 times. So I think I was much more, I guess, prepared for the humility of starting up, because I'd gone through these journeys of failures and rejections, and like I have to come today and give 100% of my energy to the input. The output is not in my control, and let me keep doing that for a period of time, and automatically something will emerge from it. That made it easier. But again, startups, as you rightly said, is no amount of novel writing and all can just prepare you for anything about a startup in that sense.
What was that one thing that you were completely not prepared for? It's like, what the hell is happening?
Well, I would say 2 things. In the early phases, when I started WhiteHat Jr., I was the solo founder with but I slowly built my team, right? I didn't know the difference between tech and product, for example, right? Like for me, like for somebody who comes from a MBA background who eventually does a startup, every day they are like surprised, right? Tech and product, अलग चीजें होती हैं. For example, which अभी तो like it's just become so much second language, right? कि tech, product, and UX design, that's a third new factor. And then you also don't realize that the technical team, etc., is looking for your direction. You as a business person, you think ठीक है, like वो अलग है, but you don't realize that business and tech are so deeply connected. So I think that whole journey was new to walk through. That was somewhat surprising. And then some things we were prepared for, right? I was the first call center operator for a long period of time. I was very well prepared कि वो करूँगा. Second, I would say the entire WhiteHat Jr. ups and downs after the Bearjuice acquisition was completely unthinkable for me overall, because like I think I'd obviously received attention before for my books or this, but this large scale of attention, the backlashes, this, that, and I think we screwed up. Obviously, how we handled it was not great at all. But overall, I would say that whole journey I was very unprepared for. But that happens. Startups,
it happens.
Both the scale of successes and the scale of falling is so live and real time, and you always put in the same best effort. And you just don't know which way it will turn. It's such a roll of the dice in a startup,
Exactly. And then once that happened, you moved to Costa Rica. Now you're back in India.
Yeah.
What prompted you to write another book? And I love the I love the title of the book. The Freedom Manifesto is such a intriguing, enticing. It almost feels like a handbook for life. And I love it. 7 rules to live the life of your calling. Like, it's really, really straightforward and speaks to me. What was the motivation to write this book?
Actually, Ankur, I followed your work a little bit, and I feel very similar to yours. I think, in a way, I also somewhere along this kind of up and down journey of like leaving jobs, writing, like leaving writing, corporate, leaving that to startup. Somewhere in that journey, I figured out somewhat the true, your true ability to really go beyond your abilities almost, or reach your full potential, is actually an integrated system of like diet, routine, your mindset, how you think about investing. All of these are very intricately connected dots that start to transform you, right? Very similar to, I think, what you learned with meditation suddenly being a huge part of your life, and your own mindset about how to maximize your output and productivity. And you realize that that input, those surprising factors like diet, mindset, routine, actually have the highest correlation in output versus almost the technical expertise or your pedigree of IM, or your technical expertise of how you know how to code or build a startup. It actually doesn't really matter as much as the input of lifestyle almost. So in a way, I think this is my codification of what I've learned in those 20 years of lots of ups and downs, failures and successes on what are the inputs in life that can actually transform your output no matter which field you are in. I really wanted to share.
And I see that, like, when I started reading it, it was so interesting कि आपने almost पूरी किताब को एक rule book जैसे बना दिया, where you can look at life in these 50-30-20 investing rule, your daily 1-1-1 routine, correct, which are very simple ways to remember and be a stark reminder कि यार ये चीजें इतनी fundamental है ना, that if you start approaching life with this mindset, it just opens up levels of consistency that you perhaps were lacking all this while. So thank you for writing this. I really enjoyed reading the book. It's such a simple and powerful read that I would love for people to pick up as well. I have one question when you were talking about this is there something that Karan has been doing almost all his life without fail, like a routine or a habit that has stayed with you all your life?
One routine and one habit. The routine, I would say, is not all my life, but quite recent, or exactly linked to the 1 year that I had taken off to do yoga and meditation. After that, I had this 1-1-1 routine, which has remained actually a part of my life for almost every single day for the last decade, with very little variations. Which is that, look, no matter how busy I get or how free I am, I always have to consistently do 1 hour of exercise, 1 hour of meditation, and 1 hour of hardcore reading and reflection. So even if I'm in the middle of this busy startup, right, what I call the 10-10-6 days, right, 10 to 10, 6 days a week, which is what a startup takes to really get off the ground. So even if you're working those 70, 80 hours at that point of time, I would always find a way ki, look, I should be able to spend 1 hour as soon as I get up to exercise, then 1 hour to I would meditate on the way to office in the Uber or something, and on the way back, and then half an hour each. And then I would make it a point to keep reading and reflecting so that the energy of new ideas keeps coming. So I think that combination of reflection on the area that you are working on, so that you don't just become an execution machine. The meditation that gives you a lot of stability of thought, especially for very driven people who are, whose minds are going faster than their abilities, if you will. And then the 1 hour of exercise, which keeps your body a well-functioning machine. Almost like what I think of, like the body is almost an efficient vehicle of the divine, the energy is flowing through you to get something done in the world. That's what you are meant for. And, you're just got to make that body that efficient vehicle that allows that energy to flow through you. And then you'll make the right decisions for the most part, So I think that routine has been very consistent for the last decade. And when you ask me about my life, I would say I was a bit fortunate. At that point, I didn't realize that. But going up in an army background, my father went to very random places like Sri Lanka, Leh Ladakh, Nagaland. So I kept changing schools. So I changed about 9 schools in the first 12 years, which I didn't like at that point of time because you were always uncomfortable. But I would say in a way, it became a greatest gift of life where I never sought comfort at all. It was very I was always constantly looking for change and growth. And thankfully, it went from kind of unfocused change at that point of time to a little bit more focused change around constantly being very ruthless with myself, saying, okay, am I really growing in what I'm doing now? Or is it that classic rule? Is it 1 year of work done 7 times, or is it truly 7 years of work kind of a thing, right? Am I really growing in what I'm doing right now? And if I'm not growing, then look, I have to make a radical transformation, and it's going to hurt. Growth will always hurt massively in the short term, but will pay back in the long term. And I just have to hold that principle. Look, it's going to hurt, and I should not fuss about it when it hurts. I have to believe that in the long term, it always pays back.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's very, very powerful. I love that. It seems that you have a fairly intense control over your day and certainly over how you conduct yourself and react to the day. So my question is, Karan, कि आपके दिन का सबसे undesirable part क्या है? Something that you wish you could get away with.
No, I think I wish I was more like you on some things that I read about you on your extreme productivity, you're not surfing the internet or, getting distracted by random things. I think within I managed to do this 1-1-1 well. I managed to work a lot on things that I'm working on. But I wish I was a little bit more of a productivity geek to have some screen shavers and all that stuff to not get distracted by, things overall. So I would say...
What distracts you the most?
No, for example, I would say something in the New York Times would catch my attention. Then you get into a bit of a rabbit hole of surfing around that idea. So I wish I was even more extreme of a... because I'm interested in a lot of things whatever I'm working on is something that is deeply interesting to me. So by that logic, I should not be distracted by something random, but it's the world we live in, I guess. Yeah. So the undesirable parts of the day is when you look back and think that there was a black hole of a few hours that just you lost because you were doing random things. Yeah.
Awesome. The one question, I don't know, I'm sure you would have gotten asked this quite often. At least on paper, at least this is what I've read in the media, your WhiteHat Jr. exit was an enviable one and something which is a life-changing amount. Did you know how to handle that kind of money?
Oh yeah, I think that one was not a very big I would say that was not a very big transition because see, I was also 41, right? I was above 40 when I made the money. If I was 21, then I would probably have gone through some cycle of learning. But I think at the age I was at, I knew very well what you need for financial freedom, which was a small fraction of that, right, or of the money. I knew that any incrementality to that doesn't add to any soul transforming happiness at all. So obviously that principle was extremely clear. I've never bought anything, so I've never bought a house so far or a car. I mean, I'm a renter by nature, just because of the lifestyle of moving constantly, seeking growth in many ways. So I didn't buy any fixed assets at all. So that was never a distraction. I think very similar to you, maybe, but I haven't really read your financial investing rules that much. But I know that 85% of fund managers don't beat the index. So I'm not trying to be in the 15% because I've gotten money suddenly. So all my investments are very passive in the index. I don't buy real estate because I'm not a fixed asset person at all. I'm a mover by. So I think all of the principles were very, very kind of true. And then I also always believe that the best investment I can make is my own growth. And I thought, look, the rest of my life has to be devoted to taking my good fortune and spreading the impact, right? And the easiest way is to take the money and give it, right? And that's one way, and that'll be one huge component. That's one huge component of what I do. But the other bigger portion will be, how can I take this year to really become even more silent and more learn to, how can I have an even more impact once I get back to the work? So I don't think anything changed in that. We were living, I went with my kids, and my wife and my kids were living in this small forest village in Costa Rica, and the kids were going to a school in the mountains. So actually, cost of living probably crashed by half after moving from India. So nothing really changed.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Where would you want to stay if outside of India? Is there a place that you can permanently think of staying?
I'm not, because of the background, I've never been a permanent person, I think, in chunks of time. I think for now, India is the most exciting place to be. I'm living in Goa. That's where I'm based. I'm also starting my new company from Goa, also my NGO and all from Goa because of two reasons. I think like in Goa, you obviously have a lot of access to nature. Hiking, backpacking has been a very big part of my life, and then I think entrepreneurs who are starting new things should kind of bet outside Delhi and Bangalore. Otherwise, I feel like the cities won't be able to sustain our ambitions and our energy. So
I so agree.
so I mean, the combination of things has made me believe that look, I'm happier in Goa, and I think it's almost a duty if I'm starting a company to not start it in Delhi and Bangalore as right now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love that. All right. On an ending note, Karan, four rapid fire questions. These will be the ones that whatever comes to your mind first. Which startup would you love to be the CEO/founder of?
Airbnb.
Oh, that's a great choice. That is such a great choice. And I'm a big fan of Brian Chesky. So
2-0 to 1, and like truly nobody would have predicted what it.
Nobody. I don't think even they could have. Yeah, that's a great choice. Money or power?
Power.
Your conversation gave that away. Yeah. Speed or perfection?
Oh goodness, I would say now it's changed. Earlier, I would have always said speed. Now I would say speed with a stable infrastructure, kind of Mark Zuckerberg. Yes. Yeah. So after this, definitely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Stable, okay. And the last one, given that you are a renter, I'm curious about this. What do you think will be the most expensive thing you'll ever own besides real estate?
Maybe to be honest, I think a Kindle, a Mac. I mean, that might be I just don't. I truly have been living out of almost like a backpack for the last 10, 15 years. Just with we just moved from place, to place. So we've been very free, liberated in some sense. So by its nature, our life is very limited with possessions. Otherwise, it doesn't fit into the life that we think is important.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the Freedom Manifesto. I'm certain that it will become just as great a guide as your first 3 novels were. And I'm looking forward to more and more success. And congratulations on your new startup. Excited to see where that goes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And great to follow your work and great to see your journey evolve. And thank you for being a beacon of light for so many.
Thank you so much, Karan. You make a difference. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye-bye.
मेरी नई किताब गेट एपिक शिट डन अब मार्केट में अवेलेबल है। इस किताब में मैं 36 ऐसे सवालों के जवाब देता हूं जो आप अपनी जिंदगी से शायद हर रोज पूछते हैं। बहुत सिंपल किताब है। एक स्टूडेंट और एक टीचर के बीच में एक कॉन्वर्सेशन में ये किताब लिखी गई है। इस बुक को खरीदने के लिए लिंक Amazon का पिन कमेंट और डिस्क्रिप्शन में है।